Hello everyone and welcome back to the latest episode of The Big Picture, and of course it is that time again where we are reviewing and discussing the latest MCU TV series. It is Loki, and we'll be pitching our improvements on season 1 to make it better than what it already is. That's assuming that it is better, but according to you, the people, it's a bit meh. It's meh. 50% of you voting our fan poll over on Twitter @_the big picture, thinking that it was meh overall. 30% of you thought it was excellent, 10% thought it was good, 10% thought it was piss poor. And 2/3 of you over on our Instagram said it wasn't the best MCU TV series yet. So that'd either be WandaVision or Falcon Winter Soldier, but I am very, very confident it's not the latter. But we move on, and as always, we are joined by the very illustrious panel here at The Big Picture. First, Rhys Cook, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm just great, thanks. I'm currently sat in my back garden. It's 27 degrees. I'm lathering myself with sun cream because I'm burned like a bitch. But it's good to be here.
Whose bright idea was it to record a podcast in this weather, Rhys?
Do you remember the very first time we ever recorded? And then, like, for the 3 weeks after, it was always like blistering sunshine. You would like, guys, just let's just record today. And Stuart kept mentioning how hot it was. Well, we've gone back to that.
Memories all alone in the moonlight. Stuart, welcome to the show. A year on, we're here still recording this bloody heat.
I know, podcasts are perfect British summer time weather. I'm glad you didn't come to me first, chat, because see, when you immediately teed up, I had this massive burp to get out of the way, and thankfully you sidestepped to Rhys, because that would have been very rude of me. But thankfully I didn't. But yeah, I'll promise to be just as polite for the rest of the show.
Do you think a variant of you remain burping at that exact moment?
I hope so. I mean, I feel like that's the only, as long as he had hair, I can't wait. There's got to be one variant of me with hair. And if he burps without saying, pardon me, that's the price you pay. That's the multiples for you.
Rhys, I brought the topic of variants there. What would you wish your variant's doing right now?
Play golf, to be honest with you. If everyone listening, we were supposed to record tonight at like 6. Well, it was maybe 6:30, and I was like, "Oh, guys, can we put it to 6 o'clock so I can go play golf?" And here we are, 3:30, we're recording. So I'll be getting more golf in than I thought.
Rhys, could you beat you at a variant at golf?
I honestly think that it would be the highest scored game of golf of all time, me versus me.
Dwight versus Dwight in the office.
Yeah.
But we'll go to our next panel member, the winner of last week's episode with our guest David Campbell from First Time Films, Lewis Jameson. Do you think your variant would have won that episode? Do you think he would have pitched better than you, or do you think you've just peaked all over Lewis Jameson's in the multiverse timelines?
If I am the version of me that's peaked, holy shit. Oh god. No, there's definitely a variant out there that picked a better pick. Like, I even doubted Brendan Fraser. I'll never do that again. Spoiler alert for my pitch.
And then we're last but not least, Adam Markievich. Do you think there's a variant of you that's actually good at singing?
Holy shit.
Yeah, there is, Jack. It's me. So I'm glad that one off the table.
Adam, have you ever been to a concert and someone's turned around at you and said, "Wow, you're really good at singing"?
Rhys, thanks for bringing it up. That I didn't ask you to bring it up beforehand. That's happened quite a few times to me, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh well. Anywho, we are talking about Loki, as aforementioned at the start of the show, and just before we kind of get into the episodes, we talk about the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. I'll just come round just briefly. Lewis, I'll come at you first. Sum up in a few words your thoughts on this TV series of Loki.
I watched the first 2 episodes. I was a bit like, oh, right, okay, this doesn't bode well, in my opinion. But as the show went on, I found myself really becoming engrossed. And that final episode, I don't want to get too much into it because I'm sure we'll talk about it more in detail later. There's a particular scene at the end involving 3 fantastic actors that I just found myself like leaning into the screen as if I was watching God himself, and I was just fascinated by the acting. So at first not so great, but holy shit did it turn it around, and it made me a big fan. Really excited.
Excellent, good. I love the optimism and the positiveness about it. I'll come to you next, Stuart. Well, but just a few words, your thoughts on the TV show as a whole.
Yeah, I really, really liked Loki. I think I had a bit of the opposite problem with Lewis. I went in and I really, really liked what I was seeing, and a couple of the middle episodes maybe just kind of wobbled a bit for me. But yeah, like it's not my favorite MCU show we've had so far. I think WandaVision still kind of edges it out, but I really liked what I saw.
What about yourself, Adam? Obviously, you it's been known many a times that you know the comics of the Marvel Inside Out, blah blah blah. So knowing what you've seen in the TV show and what you know, did it live up to expectations? Were you happy with what we saw?
Yeah, like I always say, I quite like when Marvel gets a bit experimental with the comic material, doesn't just stick to what we've seen on the page. So, and they definitely did that here. And so I was quite satisfied with their take on things, I would say, and the characters we get.
Rhys, yourself, you probably think Batman's part of the Marvel universe, but what's your thoughts on Loki overall?
Well, first of all, Batman's not a superhero, but we wouldn't need to get to that again. I was a bit like Lewis. First couple of episodes, I was a bit unsure, but because I really wasn't going to enjoy it if all the variants looked exactly like Loki and it was just Tom Hiddleston acting on his own. I was really worried about that. But then, as the show progressed, I enjoyed it. But I would say finale was underwhelming for me, and like everyone else and the listeners, I much preferred WandaVision. Not Falcon and Winter Soldier though. So it's 2 out of second.
Spitting that show. Rage. But we move on. We're going to talk about episode 1, and it picks up right where we left off in Avengers Endgame when Loki gets the Tesseract and boom, flies away, ends up in some desert, and then all of a sudden these people come out of this orange door that just spawned out the desert or nowhere and take Loki to the TVA, and we get introduced to this new setting where it's crimes against time, and if you go do something of your variant that's out with the timeline, you get brought into the TVA, you get pruned, zapped, and they reset the timeline and make sure everything's okay. And we see at this point, Stuart, I'll come to you here. This, as said before, this is the Loki from Endgame, but it's not actually from Endgame. So it's like the first Avengers movie, so it's still going on for glorious purpose and whatnot. I quite enjoyed that it's picked up from that point and it's not got to the character development we saw in Endgame.
Yeah, when it was first announced that they were doing this Loki show and it was branching off from the Endgame 2012 Loki, I must say when they were all announced, Loki was probably the show I was least excited for, just because I'm like, oh, really, Loki? We've done everything we can with him. Like, I don't think there's any more to add. Shows how much I know, and thank God that I'm not writing the MCU, because they really, for me, knocked out of the park straight away. I really like this episode and how it showcases, what the series is going to be about, and like the TVA. And I wasn't a fan of how quickly Loki runs through his whole MCU arc, because he basically watched a PowerPoint presentation on what's going to happen to him. I can live with it though. I understand it's like a necessity for the show, and I suppose I'd prefer that than having the show have to go through all 6 episodes repeating the same arc. But yeah, it was a strong opening for me. I just really loved the aesthetic of the TVA and all the weird stuff that you were being shown. Like as Adam says, like this is what the MCU is really good at, is just they take a left turn and show this really weird, wacky side of them, and I really loved it.
Since you mentioned the good man himself, Adam will come to you next. The TVA setting, very kind of bronze and monochromic, so to speak, for the colour and the kind of aesthetic of it. Were you quite happy with how the TVA was presented in the TV show as this big kind of, not, I wouldn't say doom and gloom, but when you saw it, you kind of did have that sense that they are an authority in some way?
Yeah, there was almost a sense of what we would see as an audience is like truly extraordinary work, working in time and that, but such simplified down to like a basic grey office. But then that works really well because you get the scene with like the Infinity Stones that are just like kicking about, and people use them as paperweights. So it's just, it really fits in with that theme quite well. I quite liked it. Not to that I don't want to bring up the comics in every time I come on the mic, but in the comics, they're a bit of a joke. The TVA, they're kind of just they're always a bit of a punchline. They get brought up very occasionally. They come in in some storylines they're very basic, and I think I really like that they went with something that not a lot of people would have thought of, and they've kind of expanded it out and gave us quite a good organisation.
Yeah, and we see in the TVA as well, Rhys, Ka-Chow, Lightning McQueen, Owen Wilson is in the MCU. He is Mobius, and he's assigned to Tom Hiddleston's Loki in this. Owen Wilson, for some reason, was someone that I'd never thought to be in an MCU. Not I've always thought he's a kind of a bit of a joke actor, who's in quite a lot of serious things, but putting superheroes and Owen Wilson together was never something I kind of thought. And we see him in this kind of, I wouldn't say a detective kind of role, but some kind of like custodial officer type thing. And I think he plays this himself really well throughout the entire show.
I thought he was brilliant. I was actually quite upset when he got pruned, and I was thinking, oh, he would have been really good to keep. And then obviously you find out that when you get pruned, you go to this other place, and he ends up surviving. So I was really glad for that, because I thought he was absolutely fantastic, and I thought he played the role really well, and I'll be glad to see him again.
And then as well for the ending of episode 1, the whole reason that Mobius kind of managed to get Tom Hiddleston's Loki not to be pruned and to help him with his work along the way is that it turns out the rogue variant that's killing TVA officers and ruining different timelines is actually a Loki. So in this instance, it does feel you're getting that Tom Hiddleston versus Tom Hiddleston moment, which Rhys was fear of at the start when we were speaking before. What was your thoughts? And this was like kind of initially said that was happening.
It was a twist I kind of saw coming, but I never thought that it would be a Tom Hiddleston. Not because I have like some sort of fucking amazing foresight. Like, no, I'm a great writer, I wouldn't do that. It just wouldn't sit right to me if it's just Tom Hiddleston, more Tom Hiddleston. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan, but I can only handle so much Tom Hiddleston. But one thing that did bug me was the fact they were called Minutemen, and I just got flashbacks to Fallout 4 and Preston Garvey telling me that there's something that needs my aid.
Oh, I always need to go to different settlements in Fallout 4, and we had to go to different settlements in Loki. There you go. I'm tying that in as much as I possibly can.
What a fucking segue.
But in episode 2, so we find I'll come to you, Adam, here, with the relationship and the character building of Tom Hiddleston's Loki and Mobius, Owen Wilson, kind of begins as they're trying to track down this rogue variant of Loki, and they're kind of wondering where Loki is hiding through all of this, and how are they going to possibly find her. Did you like the kind of relationship starting to build here?
Yeah, I liked the way it did that throughout the show. It would give us like kind of different themes in each episode. I think there was a lot of like relationship building themes. I really liked the tone of their relationship. I actually thought we got kind of better buddy cop almost episode than we got in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is the Marvel's buddy cop show. But however, I did really enjoy it. I just think they played really well off each other on screen. I think you saw that right from the first episode, and I think it was definitely one of the more enjoyable parts of the show for me was their relationship.
Yeah, and obviously we see them at one point they kind of find the Nexus event this rogue Loki's at, and they go to this shop where this big thunderstorm earthquake thing's about to happen. We find out that the rogue variant is actually not another Tom Hiddleston Loki. It is a female Loki going by the name of Sylvie. I was pretty surprised that I was fully expecting it to be a Tom Hiddleston versus Tom Hiddleston bit here, Stuart, but we find ourselves with Sylvie being the rogue variant of Loki is causing mischief to the TVA. What was your initial thoughts when she first appeared on your screen?
Oh, I loved it. Like, I suppose, like, if you were looking for it, like, they kind of lean heavily into, like, the twist of it being a female Loki, because they always talk about the variants of he, like, we have to stop him, he's going to get the upper hand. And she only shows up, like, for the last 5 minutes of the episode. But, man, like, what 5 minutes she has are incredible. Like, she immediately shows up and, doesn't even reveal the plan, but like you suddenly see like the room's full of the bombs, the reset charges that have been like the MacGuffin of the series so far, and they all start firing everywhere, and she just waves and leaves. Like, I loved that cliffhanger. Like, absolutely loved it. It's definitely the best cliffhanger from any of the MCU TV shows so far. Like, I have not wanted to like get to the next episode of a show like that for quite a while. Like she just immediately, as soon as she comes on the screen, she like completely makes it her own. And I really, from that point on, that I was sold on Sylvie.
What about yourself, Lewis? It's obviously Sophia Di Martino is plays Sylvie. What was your thoughts, the kind of character presentation, the way they kind of built up? So it was from the moment you find out there's this rogue variant all the way through episode 2 to the ending, and the way she gets presented out of being who she is. Were you a fan of how this came about?
Yeah, I was. I was a little bit tired when I was watching the last episode, 'cause I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I was watching episode 2. But when it was kind of that reveal came at the end of the episode, I was like, wow, holy shit. But one thing that I quite appreciated was that she was set up in a very short amount of time, granted 2 episodes, and was genuinely seemed like a real big threat. Like, obviously not like a Thanos level threat, but there was like a genuine level of, oh shit, she could fuck some shit up. Pardon the words, but like I genuinely felt like she could be a real threat, and I the way that they were portraying that was perfect.
And we kind of see like when the reveal happens, and she's kind of showing the powers that her version of Loki has. We kind of see the kind of the strength, so to speak, when she's able to kind of put herself into different like bodies and just act out herself in amongst different people, so to speak. Do you think that just kind of showed at that point? Did you get the impression that, wow, Sylvie is like 10 times stronger than what Loki actually is?
Well, no, but only because when I watch a show, I always think that the protagonist is always the strongest, and he has to find that within himself. That's the way all pretty much all superhero shows or movies go. They have to find, or anything that's feel good, they have to find it within themselves, and they're actually really strong. So I didn't get that sense. But what I would say is the way that they delivered it. With first, I was thinking, oh, it's going to be Tom Hiddleston versus Tom Hiddleston. It's going to be rubbish. Then I was thinking, oh, it's going to be Tom Hiddleston versus a bunch of different people, that because she takes the form of different people. So I thought, well, that's how they're going to do it. So it is Tom Hiddleston versus Tom Hiddleston, but you won't see the two of them battling. That's at least that's better. And then obviously when you get the grand reveal and it's Sylvie, I think, well, this is brilliant. But I didn't get the sense that I think that's what the show was alluding to, but I personally, as a viewer, can never get that feeling.
And we see at the end of episode 2, she pretty much like goads our Loki, I'll call Tom Hiddleston our Loki, to following her to wherever she's going to go to take down the TV or whatever. And Loki follows her on her merry way, and we get on to episode 3. And I'll come to you here, Lewis. We kind of first start to see the further kind of relationship building and character building of Sylvie and our Loki, Tom Hiddleston. We're kind of starting to see the Tom Hiddleston's Loki kind of get to that point of where he was at Endgame, where he was not that he was not a bad guy, but like he's starting to show more heart, and he's showing that he's kind of doing what he did because of pain and jealousy and whatnot. We're kind of seeing the good-hearted Loki that maybe he actually is. My only problem with that was I felt maybe it was kind of a bit of a sudden switch at that point after he saw the slideshow of his life in episode 1. But are you happy that he's at that point now and how Sylvie's been shown in that relationship?
I think it was kind of difficult for the writers to deal with that, because I think I mentioned in one of the WandaVision pitches talking about I quite liked Loki's character arc, but this obviously isn't Loki from the end of Endgame. This is Loki from the Battle of New York, so it's a different Loki. And at first, I wasn't like that switch, as you said, immediately happening. I was a bit like, well, that doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. And there was a couple of things I didn't particularly like in the exposition of these episodes. It just kind of like, that didn't rub me the wrong way. I was just like, right, okay, I guess I can forgive that because this is a very convoluted show with time travel and timelines and multiverses and so on. I can get past that. But I did quite like that they're trying to kind of give this idea that, you know, there's some similar traits that all Lokis share, but these two were to be the ones different. So I guess that's maybe the framing to create that later on in the show, was this sudden drastic change, which kind of did rub me the wrong way, but I get it. You've only got so many episodes, you know.
What I'd say, Adam, one of the problems I found in in episode 3 was that I found that at points it dragged a bit, so to speak, to actually to get to the point where they're needing to get to. Obviously, they want to build that relationship between Loki and Sylvie, and then we see on the train that it becomes canon that Loki's bisexual. Is great to see in the inclusivity of TV in 2021 nowadays is all really good, but there's a lot of the points before that I did feel as if it just kind of dragged on for where it needed to get to that point.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think there was a sense that they put them in a situation and they wanted that to be the entirety of the episode, and then they kind of realised maybe there wasn't quite enough content just with the world, the environment they created, so they were going to have to add some filler, and I think that did show. I think, did they have to commit to it for the full episode? Maybe. I think with the style they were going for, the kind of reveals you got each episode, that kind of stuck with that style. Like not revealing too much, but then they'll kind of reveal at the end, and then okay, this is what's happening in the next episode. Here's an idea of it, kind of thing. So I think it worked, but I do agree that this was probably maybe the episode that dragged the most for me as well.
Yeah, it was a bit filler, I think. And one thing that kind of just dawned on me now is that Disney were not afraid in other shows like The Mandalorian to make 20-minute, 30-minute episodes. So I don't see why they couldn't have just done something like that here, and maybe just had a bit more dialogue between the two characters and have that be the episode, them two kind of having a battle of the wits, so to speak. I'm not quite sure why Disney just didn't do that.
And then Stuart, we kind of see it from the train onwards. The episode really does pick up, and I really enjoyed what we saw from this moment onwards. Where they had to fight in the train, they get kicked out of the train and during the fight and whatnot, and they're in this Nexus event already. They need to get onto this kind of ship to get to the TVA or whatever it is they were looking to do to take it down. But we see at this point, I remember we had a discussion about it about this scene, and I speculated whether Loki had one of the Infinity Stones, because we see the kind of actual power that Tom Hiddleston's Loki has. So do you think there was obviously it's turned out that never really was the case, and it was just Loki's power? Do you think that had anything to do with the relationship between Sylvie clutching at straws, maybe seeing what he could do, or do you think he was just maybe perhaps nerfed in the movies beforehand and they wanted to make him stronger in his own TV show to be that kind of hero of the TV series?
I don't know. It's funny you bring up the idea of Loki getting nerfed in the movies. I actually think he's actually been nerfed on the show, because see if you look at how he fights in Avengers, the first Avengers film, he can go toe to toe with Captain America, which is no mean feat, because they kind of have a little bit of a battle, and he can kind of fight against Thor for a little bit, and then we saw in the previous episode he's getting thrown about some Asda by some trucker. So I was actually, when I was watching that, I was like, why is Loki just getting ragdolled about? So, and then obviously referring to the end scene of this episode, where he's putting buildings back up like Doctor Strange. I think they probably just kind of were making it up as they go along. I think Loki's always had a bit of a kind of vaguely defined power set. We all know he can make illusions and do stuff like that, but that's really it. And he's a bit stronger because he's from Asgard compared to humans. But it's nice to see them add stuff, but at the same time it's a bit jarring to add it out of nowhere. So I didn't. It was another thing in this episode that I didn't really like. This was my least favorite episode out of the whole show. I really didn't like it at all. I rewatched it just yesterday and it was a little bit better, but no, it all just seemed kind of point A to point B, and nothing really mattered, because all you really find out is that all the TVA workers are variants, and I feel that could have been, like Lewis said, I feel that could have been established in 10 minutes as opposed to making a whole episode about it. So I don't know, it was just a bit jarring as a whole, the whole episode.
I was just gonna say, do you think it's funny that we had a bit of magic kind of explained to us, a bit of magic in the MCU explained to us in WandaVision, and now we're getting a bit of magic explained to us in Loki, and there's Doctor Strange coming out. Do you think this is gonna be, we should be taking notes? This is important for later.
It's like we're playing a Telltale game, and it's at the top left corner of our screen, so and so will remember this.
I feel magic now, I feel they're getting they're safe enough with magic that they just like to say, "Oh, this is magic now." Because I remember when like Thor and Doctor Strange first came out, it's clearly magic, but they're like, "Oh no, this is just a different type of science," which I could kind of understand because I'm sure if you like show it to primitive species like a mobile phone, they'd be like, "Oh," because essentially like a bit of glass with like that you can do anything on. So I can understand the whole magic is science argument, but magic is such a huge part of the Marvel comics that it's just safer to just say, that shit's magic. Just call it what it is.
And Reese, before we get on to episode 4, we had extensive discussion on the kind of last 5 minutes of this episode because we were quite not. I mean, we wouldn't go so far as to say blown away, but really did enjoy the cinematography that happened in that kind of final scene when they're running through the collapsing city as the next event was about to occur. What was your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy the cinematography of the TV series as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, something I absolutely love in TV and film is the cinematography and like scenes like in this Nexus event where the buildings there. I think the ship sort of explodes and it just looked beautiful. Like the colors were so vibrant, it was amazing. But when you mentioned earlier on about the TVA and it being monochrome and that, they never really mentioned when it pans out and you see this like. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like just like this infinite world of like it's really hard to describe. But it was like breathtaking to look at, and I was like, that's just brilliant. I think that the cinematography and the show, like across the whole thing, all 6 episodes, I think every episode has at least one scene where you can go, that just looks really good. Overall, as a show, I thought the cinematography was fantastic.
Now, you love cinematography, but one thing you don't love is incest. And that takes us on to my favourite episode of Loki, episode 4. I was completely taken aback by everything that happened. I'd go as far as to say this is probably my favourite MCU TV episode out of all 3 series, period. But, as I said, we don't like incest. But, Adam, I'll come to you when we're talking about this. Not because of incest. It just so happens you're on my list for discussion first. But a romantic interest that seemed to spark between Loki and Sylvie. But obviously, it's not about him loving Sylvie. If you look deep into it, it's about Loki actually starting to love himself. Were you a fan of how that was being portrayed, or were you just like, ugh?
I was a bit taken. I kept thinking of the bit in The Simpsons where Homer imagines having himself to loving himself, and the scene of the kissing and then the way Homer baby's going about that kept coming to my head. I do think it's a bit strange when you think of the comic origin of Sylvie, which is that Loki created her. So that's a bit dodgy. But I guess I got it in this. It kind of made sense. I thought, I want to get jumped too far ahead of myself in discussion. I thought it would just be a hint of, and we never really got a conclusion to it. And I thought it would just be the kind of message of, like you say, like getting to love himself. But I understood where they came from. I can see why. Again, we're talking about Marvel kind of going off the beaten track with the comic material, and I thought this was another time they did that. And yeah, it worked more than it didn't for me.
So we see at this point when the kind of romantic interest sparks, the next event is just about to happen, and the TVA come in, whisk them away back to the head offices, and Sylvie's captured. Loki's back with Mobius. Mobius thinks Loki's betrayed him, and Loki reveals to Mobius, Rhys, that he is himself a variant, and he gets put in this kind of time prison. And after the kind of work that Mobius kind of digs into, actually believes Loki that he is a variant, and kind of the world around him isn't what it should be. Are you kind of glad that there was actually a kind of a character that maybe I wouldn't say the first character, because I guess Thor does trust him at one point, but a clear indication of trust being put in Loki by Mobius? Do you think that just shows the kind of the character development you see even for both Mobius and Loki from the start of the show to this point?
Well, I feel like Mobius has to trust Loki from the start anyway, like, because obviously if any other agent was assigned to him, they would have just put him in a prison or pruned him or whatever. But he, Mobius uses Loki to try and find Sylvie. So he has to put an element of trust in him there, and then Loki ultimately betrays that trust. And for anyone else, that would be right. That's it. You're not getting a second chance. But Mobius, being the great guy that he is, he listens to what Loki has to say, and he doesn't take it as, oh, you're just trying to trick me. He actually looks into it, believes him, and then comes to save him, and then, well, we all know what happens. But I think it does show great character development from Mobius, sorry, and for Loki, maybe he's actually a trusting guy. For now, he's always the god of mischief, but maybe now he's a trusted guy.
And we see Lois at this point. Once Mobius does trust him, they come back to the TV office, and Ramona, I think it's Ramona, I can't mind, is there and is ready to take them away. And kind of Mobius at that point is like, you know what? No, this what's happening here isn't right. And then bam, like Train Spotting, but Begbie just killing anyone, prunes Mobius, boom, gone. The second big shock of the show. Were you surprised that at this point anyway that maybe the assumption is that Mobius has been killed off?
Yeah, it was quite a drastic change. It wasn't something like it's completely out of left field, and obviously that's to engage the audience and make them go, oh shit. I wasn't really a fan of Owen Wilson, but he starts to win me over at this point. So it wasn't when he gets pruned, I'm like, oh man, I just started to like him. What's going on here? But obviously it works. It's so at left field. I got instantly ingrained. I wanted to know what the fuck was going on. Why was this the case? Obviously, almost confirms your suspicions. Obviously, at this point, you start becoming a bit suspicious of TV, what's going on. And when something like that happens, the audience goes, right, well, no, I'm not buying this TVA crap anymore. You guys are the villains. Let's go. Let's keep going. So, yeah, no, it's completely out of left field. They've made me feel some stuff, which is rare for me. So, no, I liked it.
And we see from here on, and Adam, Loki and Sylvie get finally taken to the characters being alluded to for the entire episode, the timekeepers. And then it turns out that the timekeepers are there for literally 2 minutes, and the head gets chopped off one of them, and it turns out to be robots. So the timekeepers aren't the be all and end all of the TVA. They aren't the gods of the TVA, so to speak. But as someone that knows their Marvel, I know I read a lot of stuff about people not being happy with how the timekeepers were being presented and how it was just kind of used as to add on to something else. What was your thoughts on it?
I was quite happy with the way they were used, to be honest. Like in the comics, they're kind of just there. They're just like a kind of shit, the Uatu, the Watcher, etc. So like they're like just a worse version of that. People don't think they're timekeepers, and they think of people looking out over the universe kind of thing. So for me, like I liked the way they played it. I thought it worked really well. I thought you did get the shock. Like as much as I knew that they weren't like amazing characters, I still thought it would be them. So then when it was them, you're definitely a bit thrown. And I think that was good. Like you want a show that takes material that already exists. You want it to be able to shock you, and I think it's not the first. It's not the first time that Marvel's done that with this. So I'm glad, and hopefully it won't be the last.
And sure, the other big shock that happens here is after the head of the timekeeper gets choked off, and boom, robot Ravonna from out of nowhere, like an RKO from Randy Orton, prunes Tom Hiddleston, and you're left flabbergasted, like gobsmacked. For some reason, I didn't see this coming, and at this point, we assume that our Loki's gone, and maybe Sylvie replace him or whatever it is. But this leads to our first mid-credit scene, and it turns out that he's not dead. He's in this new place, and he looks up and he sees like 4 or 5 different Loki variants in front of him. Were you happy with the first mid-credit scene of the TV series? Were you happy they went down that kind of direction of Loki being pruned?
Yeah, absolutely. When Owen Wilson got pruned, I was like, oh no, like he is dead, and I was like, I actually had a split second of like, I don't know if I want to watch this anymore if Owen Wilson's not going to be in it, because I say that as somebody who really doesn't actually like Owen Wilson like in anything else that he's in, but then Loki gets pruned, and sorry, Rhys.
Lightning McQueen. You don't like Lightning McQueen?
Maybe Cars 3.
well, Cassidy is a beauty, to be fair.
There you go. See,
Continue.
thank you. Me and Rhys, friendship unbroken. But when Loki got pruned, I actually, this is how like unexpected the show is, because ordinarily when something like that would happen, I'd be like, he's still alive. But there was a kind of like, oh shit, like, is that Loki dead? Are we about to like have Sylvie go and try and find another Loki or something like that? That was my thought process, and then the credit scene happened. And if we were only going to get one credit scene for this series, and we did, I'm glad it was this one, because not only do they, give you, oh, don't worry, Loki's fine, but also Richard E. Grant's there, like in a leotard playing old Loki. You've got Kid Loki, and you've got Alligator Loki. I was like, yep, all right, all in. Is it next week already? Loved it, absolutely loved that.
And as from that moment on to episode 5, when we get introduced to the Void and Goliath, the big kind of lapdog guarding the Void and what hides behind the Void and whatnot, and we see all sorts of kind of Easter eggs, so to speak, like various props and references throughout just the Marvel universe. We see Mjolnir, we see Throg, the frog version of Thor, we see a Yellow Jacket helmet egg statue, we see the Thanos copter. So we see a lot of stuff that's maybe referenced in the comics before in this point here. And Adam, will come to you again. The Void and Goliath. I like the setting of the Void. I did not like Goliath being used in this kind of capacity. I don't know if maybe it's just my limited knowledge of it. I feel that a lot more could be done with Goliath, and to me it was just used cheaply.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It felt a bit Big Grey Monster. It felt a bit DC EU. I'm trying to fire shots here or anything, but they love a Big Grey Monster at the end of a film, and I think that you definitely got that initial disappointment of, oh, it's a Big Grey Monster. It's not something we've really seen from Marvel. Can they be forgiven for it? I think it works well as a plot device. Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe it is a bit of a waste, but I think overall the way they use them to interact with the characters we get, I think it does work well. And we, as much as if you got a Big Grey Monster, you use him in an epic finale, and we did get that. So I think I was still quite satisfied with his appearance.
And Stuart, we see as well, and this is he's meeting the different Loki variants. He's seeing the Void, he's seeing Goliath. Sylvie's still at the TVA being chased by Ravonna, and the dialogue that happens leads to a mention of Sylvie's kind of only has bad memories, and then when she starts to think of a good memory, it seems that good memory leads her to self-prune to be with Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and that kind of further leans on the romantic relationship that starts to build between these two. Were you happy at that continuation there? Were you happy that was the kind of what we think is the motive to head down to find Tom Hiddleston's Loki?
Yeah, I do like Sylvie and Loki's relationship. It is a bit rushed, but I can forgive it because, as we've only got however many episodes. Maybe if they hadn't wasted so much bloody time walking on that planet that was literally crashing into a moon, maybe if they'd sped that up, had some urgency about the oncoming apocalypse. But anyway, no, I really like that episode. Like it's kind of split between everything that's going on and the development between Loki and Sylvie. You do kind of get that sense of, we're in this together now. We'll see it to the end. Like even they're unsure, and I think they're both, because as we know, like this is Loki from Avengers. This is before kind of Thor begins to treat him more as an equal, and other people start to warm to Loki, and like he warms back to them. I think this is the first kind of real relationship, or like real bond that Loki's ever had with anybody. She kind of treats him as an equal, and he kind of responds to that by treating her as an equal. So as we see, like it's good because this whole episode's about all the other Lokis backstabbing each other. So it's nice to see these two Lokis work together and form something more.
Lewis, we kind of see some bits of like kind of fun in this episode as well. Obviously, Sylvie gets found by Mobius. Turns out he's not dead, and he's in a racing car, and we see the subtle reference when you turn right to go left, I think it is, when he's kind of spinning around. So all all that great stuff going on. But we do see Loki betraying Loki when they're in the kind of the war hangar, when they're hiding away from Alioth to kind of strategize on what they want to do. And we do get the kind of touching goodbye between Loki and Mobius at the end of this episode, when it's kind of decided that Loki and Sylvie are going to take on Alioth to get to whatever is behind Alioth in the void, whatever it is. we don't know what's there at that point, but like the friendship that's kind of made to the end there, we've spoken about it quite a bit, but I kind of had a tear in my eye when they kind of hugged each other and they said, "Goodbye, my dear friend." I was like, what a guy.
Was there a question there, or are you just doing over Owen Wilson?
I just want you to agree with me. That's all.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say I cried, because, as you guys know, I don't cry. But this definitely did seem like the start of the crescendo of that sort of turning for this version of Loki. You know, as much as I loved seeing the other Lokis, as well as alligator Loki, that seemed quite small for an alligator. But it really does kind of come full circle, and I think that moment's quite important when it just says, you know, "You're my friend" and all this kind of stuff. It's very, when you kind of conceptualize that with understanding that this is Loki from Avengers 1. This isn't a reformed version. This is the guy that's coming in and really making a change, and it was quite a powerful moment and great way to kind of close the episode. So yes, I do agree with you, but no, I did not cry.
That's a shame. That's a real shame. But Rhys, we can't talk about this episode without talking about Richard E. Grant. It's the classic Loki, and we see how strong Loki can be when, like, he's able to recreate a fully envisioned Asgard, and it shows just how great Loki can be. I thought Richard E. Grant was amazing for his entire episode. What was your thoughts on his episode appearance and his portrayal of Loki?
Well, Jack, it's interesting you asked me this, because I don't know who that guy is, but I did think he did a great job. So I thought that, like you said, the way that he can portray how much power Loki could actually have when he's older was excellent. But I'm not going to fanboy over him like you guys, because I genuinely have no idea who he is.
Would anyone that knows who Richard E. Grant is like to come in and talk about how great he was or how shit he was? Just it's an open forum. You can take it away if you enjoyed his performance.
I really enjoyed his performance. I think when he was kind of talking about like, oh, like I survived Thanos, and then I just like kind of I isolated myself for years and years and years, and then like he was like he started to miss Thor. And then as soon as he decides, you know what, I'm gonna go and see him. As soon as he does that, TVA shows up, and like you always get this kind of feel about Loki that like he doesn't care about Asgard and he doesn't care about his family and everything like that. But there's like Richard E. Grant at the end, he literally builds up Asgard all from memory, like completely accurate, in order to like save somebody else. Like it was really, I really liked his performance. Like he had good comedic timing, he had good dramatic acting. I really liked what he brought. It's a shame that he was only in it for that one episode.
Well, one episode. We have one episode left, Stuart. We're on the finale, and before we kind of get on to it, we see glimpses of these characters in the finale. I'll come to you, Rhys. Here we see Ravonna, B-15. Not that they were integral. I don't know that's the right word.
Integral.
That's it to the plot, but they were there and they kind of aided the plot to get along the way. We're happy with how they kind of, I don't want to call them side characters, but we're happy how these characters were used in furthering the story of the TV series.
I was happy with how they were used as a whole across the 6 episodes, but they really did not tie up any loose ends with the side characters. Like Hunter B-15's away recruiting all the guys in the TVA to tell them that they're variants and to join her army or whatever. I don't know where Ramona is. You know, they really didn't tie up any loose ends with them, which really disappointed me. And I know that that's because of what happens in the post-credit scene, perhaps, but I still like, for when a series ends, for the side characters especially, to have the loose ends tied up. So I was a bit frustrated at the end of this episode.
And the big finale reveal we see here, Lewis, it's he who remains, and it's believed to be Kang the Conqueror. Are we happy to see this being Kang's kind of first introduction to the MCU, knowing that when Marvel were detailing the Phase 4 of the MCU, that he is the main antagonist in Ant-Man Quantumania?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's quite made obvious to the fans, but I think one thing is quite key is that in a later episode, in the latter one, it is kind of, he's a variant of Kang, so it gives still a room of mystery as to what exactly details this specific variant, why he's different. So it was quite a good reveal, and it definitely kind of still leaves some mystery for the audience and keen comic book readers and all that jazz to still get a little bit of like, ooh, what's happening next? And it's quite a good story device, the kind of this use of this variant to keep a mystery and to keep an allure around characters that, most people, well, I shouldn't say most people, that like hardcore fans would be like, well, I know exactly who that's going to be. It's like, well, hang on here a minute, buddy. There's a little change here, a little chance here. And I appreciate that.
See, I think John Major absolutely carried this episode for me. I enjoyed it, but he was like a shining light.
Couldn't agree more with you, Jack. That what a scene in the finale. Oh, what a scene! But I'll let you continue to dote on him, because as I dote on Owen Wilson for you, you can dote on John for me.
But as you made mention before, Lewis, it seems to be in connection with other variants. He's the he who remains. He's the one that's keeping this timeline together, Adam, and he reveals that if he was to be killed, as that is kind of Sylvie's plan for the be all and end all to kind of end the TVA, the other Kangs throughout the multiverse are ones that are more villainous, or ones that want to destroy multiverses and universes as a whole. But Sylvie's got a plan. It turns out she had this plan all along, and she betrays our Loki, kills Kang to see out her mission, and breaks reality, causing the multiverse to occur. Not surprised that this happened, but we're happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I thought it was like a suitable enough impact of like Sylvie's betrayal. You did feel like there was quite a lot of character development, and could she see the bigger picture, which is very difficult to do when your life is defined by the TVA. But then the answer is no, not really. Well, Loki obviously can. I did think I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this episode. I felt I enjoyed all the episodes. This one I've definitely enjoyed quite a lot. I did feel like when we got to the end of it, I felt a bit like I was waiting for more, and I understand why. And I agree with Rhys. Because they didn't tie up the side character plot lines. They didn't tie up any plot lines really, so they left everything open, which did feel a bit disappointing. But I definitely felt like the impact was there. I did think it's funny that kind of Kang the Conqueror is getting his spotlight. As in the comics, he was kind of Thanos before Thanos, but with a bit more like comedic failing, because Marvel didn't really think as big as anything like the kind of Infinity Gauntlet back then. So it's nice to see him get a kind of reverse order. He's now in the limelight after Thanos, when in the comics it was him first.
But before we get on to our pitches to improve season 1, I'll come to you lastly, Stuart. We see Sylvie sends Loki back to the TVA, and when he realizes he's back in the TVA, he kind of has that kind of oh fuck moment. The universe and the world itself just completely fucked. We need to do something about it. So he's kind of gathering himself, and he's running through the TVA, and he finds Mobius, he finds B-15, saying this big threat is coming. We need to gather an army, we need to get ready, we need to fight. And it turns out that Mobius doesn't remember who he is. B-15 doesn't remember who he is. They think he's some analyst that works on the floor above him. And then when he kind of, in that panic, and turns around and sees a big model statue of Kang, and it looks like he is the boss of the TVA in this episode. And at that point, you're like, oh, this season isn't ending here. There's something more going to happen. We get that in the post-credit scene, where they confirm a season 2 is happening for Loki. Are you happy that this isn't like a mini series, so to speak, like WandaVision and Falcon the Winter Soldier, where they were only commissioned for one thing, but this Loki seems to be a a continual TV series that could roll on to. Also, we're getting a second, but maybe even a third or a fourth. We don't know how far it will go, but the intention is it's kind of heading down that way anyway.
I'm happy that we're getting a season 2 because obviously things are not wrapped up. Yeah, like I was really on board. Like when, as you said, when Loki comes back to the TVA and he sees that big statue of former Prime Minister John Majors, as you called him, in the TVA, it's thanks, Adam. I knew you'd get it. Yeah. I was going to make a comment about Rhys yawning halfway through Jack's
I was
question.
stretching. I was stretching. I was like, see what I was doing? I was like, they might have heard that. Stretch. Don't worry, Jack. I'm stretching my back.
No, like I am happy that we're getting more of this because obviously everything isn't wrapped up. A lot of people aren't happy that this isn't wrapped up. I think because like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, they wrapped up their stories nice and neat. I'm glad that this is, because essentially this is, I'm assuming that this is Marvel saying, hey, this is the new phase. It's all multiverse. Like you've got that big shot of like the multiverse all branching out into all these like infinite little branches. You know, what I liked about this show as well is how we've just had the Infinity Saga, you know, which took 20 odd films to get to, and they touted Thanos as the biggest badass in the galaxy, and then they immediately are saying, the Infinity Stones are worthless now. And I like that because like it shows that Marvel's pushing forward. Whilst it probably is annoying to a lot of new fans that you have to watch everything in order to kind of like go on the ride with them, it's worth it because man, like what they're setting up is just incredible. I can't wait for not just like not just Loki, but Doctor Strange, like as we were saying, you know, Spider-Man and in WandaVision, all these different things that are branching towards the multiverse. I am so blown away that not only did they decide to announce their plans basically on a TV show, but it just shows the amount of support they have and the amount of faith they have in their own ideas, that everyone is going to like where they're going to take us. So yeah, I'm absolutely 100% on board with a season 2. I think if any show was going to get a season 2, this is the one that needs it the most.
Well, there we have it. There is our season 1 review of Loki, and it's now time to get to the bit that we are known for, and that is to pitch to make Loki better. And I will go in the order that the pitches were sent to me. So first up, Stuart, can you make Loki better than it already is?
I'll sure try. As I said, the only one of the few criticisms I had of the show was I just really did not like episode 3. It really kind of, like I said, episode 2 ended this big huge cliffhanger and I was really chomping a bit to see what was going to happen, and then episode 3 happens and it's just kind of nothing. Like it's really not anything worthwhile at all. It's almost like they kind of wasted an episode in my opinion. So what I would like to do is just change that episode. I won't get too much specifics, but basically I would like episode 3 to just have a bit more of a bit more pace, a bit more of an urgency, because Sylvie just set off all these like multiverse bombs in the timeline. They literally say somebody's bombed the sacred timeline, and I was like, wow, that must be so incredible to see. So my pitch for episode 3 is we get to see that. So the episode would start, they're at the TVA, you know, Ravonna is about to prune them, but then Loki gets them out of there, Ricky Tick, but they don't just go to Lamentus, they go so many places, they go everywhere. Like imagine basically because of her bombs, any time is an apocalypse now. Like everywhere's chaos. Basically, I would like my episode 3 to be like that Rick and Morty episode where they're on the run from the Council of Ricks and they have to go to all those different dimensions just to like shake them off. That's what I'd like, because Sylvie's trying to shake Loki and Loki's trying to shake like Owen Wilson, because I think that was another big casualty of episode 3 was there was no Owen Wilson. Like I loved the dynamic that they had together. So what I want to get rid of that. I want more of that. So basically, my episode 3 is it's a big chase throughout the multiverse. You know, you get to see all different types of planets and all different types of apocalypses. You know, even take us to a couple of familiar apocalypses. Maybe take us to the Snap. Maybe take us to like one of the other world-ending Avengers threats. But yeah, that's what I'd like. Basically, just a chase through the multiverse. Sylvie, Loki, and Mobius.
So, and instead of a dragged out episode 3, you watch something that's a bit more high octane, something that keeps you at the edge of your seat as you're seeing the nexus of events implode the universe as it so is.
Yeah, and also it kind of gives weight to Sylvie's plan because, like she said, she's like, "Oh, I've this plan was years in the making," but you don't even kind of see it. You see like the setup to it. You don't see the the effect of it. So I think that's what I'd like to see as well.
Excellent, very good. I'll open the floor to anyone that has questions for Stuart and his pitch to speak now or forever hold your peace.
Hi Stuart, long time, first time. Just 2 questions. One, how wild will the worlds get that they go to? Will they go to a world where the phones are people and people are chairs? And also a more serious question, will we see a bit of interaction with, you mentioned the snap and things like that, will we see interaction with other Marvel characters? Will we see, you feel like with Thanos, if they went to the snap, he's pretty much omnipotent when he gets all the stones, do you think he would notice some kind of disturbance? Would he interact with them? Would we get a bit of that?
Jack, you mind if I take this one from the fan? Hi Adam, nice to meet you. Yeah, like I wouldn't. First of all, like out there places. I mean, Marvel's got so many. I want Duck World. I want maybe Savage Land and everything like that. I'd like to see some of those like kind of really out there realities. But I don't want them like slap bang Eye of the Storm. Like they crop up and Thanos is there with the gauntlet. Maybe just like take them to Earth whilst everyone's getting snapped, like in a big city. Like I feel like because that the whole world, the whole of the universe is like in an apocalypse at that point, you could really take them anywhere. As long as you see people getting dusted, then that's fine. I wouldn't want them to be like, oh hey Iron Man, like hey, I just in the background of like somewhere obscure, and just so that if you rewatch those episodes or those movies again, you could think, 50 miles away, Loki and Sylvie just popped up and they're getting chased by Owen Wilson. I feel like that would be a nice kind of like another layer on the already layered up MCU cake.
Thanks, thank you.
Hi, Stuart, long time caller, first time listener. Question for you is the potential for something like this to maybe goad into.
I just thought, sorry, listen, it's got that.
Nightmare.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, continue. That was good. Well done.
Well done.
I was so far this season, episode 3 thing is a bit long, but I was wondering to sell me on this because I'm there, but also there's other people still to go. We learn in episode 6 that Kang's from the 31st century. So how would you deal with perhaps going to the future and maybe dabbling in some of the stuff that is yet to come? Not necessarily giving us spoilers or massive teasers or something like that, but just like appearing at different times in different movies that might be available. Is that something that you would particularly want, or are you just like, no, it's too convoluted, too difficult, let's just kind of keep it to what it is?
Yeah, just kind of keep it short and sweet. Like I don't want them. I feel like if you put them, you can still put them on. You could still put them on Lamentus. I personally wouldn't, but you could still get them there. It's just that Lamentus isn't the whole episodes, because I just want a bit of urgency just to make sure the episode doesn't drag. I wouldn't want to like rope in like all these different aspects of the show, especially with the surprise of like Kang and He Who Remains at the end. I wouldn't want to touch him until they bring him up in the episode. So like it's just I just think, Lisa, keep it simple. Like it's not like that. The whole I think the reason this idea came from me was like when I watched the trailer for Loki, it seemed like that's what he was going to be doing, like dicking about in time. Like you see him like in all these scenarios and you think, oh, it's Loki with the Tesseract, he's going to go all out. I agree that they shouldn't do that. Like I feel like it's just going to be like, we're in to this apocalypse, then we're straight back out because they are on the run. And I suppose that makes sense for the Tempad to run out eventually because they use it in so many trips as opposed to them just using one. I don't know if that answers your question, but thanks for listening, Lewis. Stay in school.
Yeah, I probably should have. It's a bit late for me now. I'm going to die alone. Bye.
Stuart, I really like your pitch. I think it would be quite exciting, and like Adam, I would be very happy to see the chair people make an appearance. But I think that my only question for you is, how would you develop the relationship between Loki and Sylvie then, if the whole episode is action packed? Because this episode is based pretty much solely on them identifying that there's a spark between them, which causes the TVA to find them because it sends waves off, and you've never seen anything like it before. So how would you develop that?
I feel you could develop it along the same lines. Like what I liked about the beginning, like you saw in Lamentus, was like the way like they use their powers is quite complementary. Like in the plan to get on the train, like Loki disguised himself, but then Sylvie like enchants somebody. I'd like to see that a lot. Like if they basically keep getting landed slap bang in a war zone of all these apocalypses, just do that, and like they get a feel for each other of like, oh, you know, like our powers do work in tandem well with each other, and maybe like he then saves her, and like he's like, oh, don't take it personally, I just want the like they're trying, like he's like, oh, I just wanted to steal the tempad from you, and vice versa. Like I still think you could, because the relationship's not really established enough yet. I know that there's that kind of slowdown on the train, but I feel like you could also, like, once the tempad eventually runs out of juice, like you still get that conversation, you still get that, well, we're stuck here, we're gonna die, you know, what's that old meme, ASL on MSN, you know, just, you know, you still get that conversation. So I feel like it still gets there, it's just a bit more well paced about it.
Thank you.
Very good. Answered your defence well, Stuart. It's good questions by the panel. And the next person to step up to the plate is Rhys Cook. Take it away, my friend.
Hello there. Thanks for
Wow.
having me. Okay, my pitch is a lot more complicated than Stuart's, and I hope you guys can keep up with what I'm saying because it's a lot of nonsense. So essentially, my pitch boils down to that I want 3 more episodes because I don't think there was enough in what happened in the first season there for a season 2. So I just want 3 more episodes and just to wrap it up there at the end. So instead of Sylvie and Loki fighting at the end, she lures them there and betrays him, which causes Loki to reevaluate his relationships. And it also means that there's no hope for a Loki incest porn step bro dynamic, which I'm very much glad because I do not like them two being romantically involved at all. So I mean, I'm content for what happens between Sylvie and Kang to still happen. But I want Loki to, when he's pushed by Sylvie, I want him to go back to his own timeline, or certainly the timeline after after Endgame. But when he gets there, this is where it gets a bit complicated. I want him to go back to his own timeline, but I also want him and Mobius et al. To be there so that they can like continue where they've left off. So he says, he meets up with Mobius and he explains everything what's happened, and then Loki says, "There's only one person that can save us." Boom. Next episode. So this is the first of the 3 episodes. Loki attempts to enlist the help of Thor. Okay, the reason that this is important because it shows a real character development for Loki. You know, throughout the show, there was hints at character development for Loki, but they weren't real enough. You didn't really get that proper arc. So, you know, Loki being heartbroken by Sylvie and was left lifeless. Oh my gosh, that's a sentence. And there was no arc. And I understand, you know, as Jack said earlier, it's a metaphor for him loving himself, but we need a real character arc showing weakness and asking his brother for help. So showing this side would be an actual character progression and not that half-hearted stuff that we got. Anyway, reluctantly, Thor agrees to help him, and knowing that this is a tall order, and given that he's already with the Guardians, he asks the Guardians to help him out, and they obviously trust him, and they say, "Sure, mate. Next episode, episode 2." we get a full-on battle of different Kangs fighting out against the Guardians and Loki. As much as I thought Kang was excellent in the final episode, the dialogue battle would be better served in a versus Paul Bettany's vision. I want to see an actual fight scene between the Kangs. I think that would be exciting. And during the fight, Loki and Sylvie are battling out, and Sylvie, breaks down and says, "Oh, she didn't want this to happen," and lures Loki back in with her suggestive ways. Loki runs off to an extinction event with her, and as Loki agrees, the episode ends. Boom. Next episode. Where am I? So it looks like Loki's betraying his brother and is still evil, and it's a good spot, good cliffhanger for going into the final episode. So when he's out there, the whole tone of the episode, or the whole tone of the 2 episodes past, changes to the more soft, and they have a conversation, and Sylvie reveals that she didn't and doesn't actually care about any of the consequences. And at this point, Loki realizes she's beyond saving. So Sylvie at this point has the Tempest and won't let him leave. And then they fight it out. And this time Loki wins, steals the Tempest, abandons her on the extinction event, and goes back to help Thor. Eventually, they defeat most, if not all the Kangs. You can never really know because there's an infinite number of them. And Loki and Thor are happy families for the first time, proper happy families, good pals. Mobius gets a chance to look at his real life and ultimately decides that it's been too long and would be too difficult to go back, and he elects to stay at the TVA as the leader, and keeping timeline in order, allowing for maybe a little bit more chaos than there had been. And people who work at the TVA will now volunteer as opposed to being variants under Mobius's new rules. And then the episode ends. But post-credit scene, boom, Julia Louis-Dreyfus rocks up to the extinction event and says to Sylvie she'll save her if she agrees to join her team. And then the two of them walk through the thing and they leave the extinction event, which opens the door for so much more. The purpose of the 3 episodes is to change the narrative at the ending. Loki is not and never has been a bad guy. He's always been misunderstood and wicked. His wicked behaviours come from being in the shadow of his brother, and as such they're enemies. This new narrative shows what I think the show was trying to portray, that Loki is a good guy, but the arc in the show isn't good enough to show this. Plus, with my 3 episodes, it tees up exciting things for the future. Loki being able to team up with Thor and the Guardians, whilst Sylvie has the potential to team up with the Dark Avengers. And that, my guys, is my pitch.
A lot to take in. It's a conclusivity you want. You won't want a second season. You want these 3 episodes to actually bring finality to what the TV show was originally for, but also branching out to other possibilities for what Loki and Sylvie can actually do.
Yeah, certainly if there is a sequel to it, I would rather be in the form of a movie than another series. Something with a bigger budget, more cast, so that you can have like Thor and all that in it as well. So I'm just interested to hear what you guys think about it.
I'm also very interested to hear what the other 3 will have to say. So the floor is open. I'm sure you've all got questions for Rhys.
Hi.
Hello.
It's me again.
Yes.
I like how you want some conclusivity. I agree. Like we both had similar thoughts on the ending. My only worry, and don't know if you agree with me here. Do you not think with another scene of Loki and Sylvie escaping, and then another part of an episode where they're kind of talking things through, do you not worry that could be a bit samey because we've already kind of had scenes like that in the series?
I feel like Loki and Sylvie have been together for the 6 episodes in the original series, and throughout it, they don't really betray each other. They kind of allude to, I was just trying to get the Tempest off you, which was fun, and it's like kind of rom-com humor, but they don't actually betray each other. And this is a new Loki. He gets betrayed by Sylvie, and he offers her a second chance. And that's something that you would never have seen from Loki before. So when he offers her the second chance and she messes it up again and betrays him again, he cuts ties with her. And I feel like this would show that Loki's a stronger person. He's a bigger guy, and he's not just all about mischief now. It's an actual character progression, and I feel like that would portray it well. And I do understand what you're saying about there's a lot of chatting between them throughout the episodes, and it could become a bit samey, maybe a sense of apathy. But I feel like it would be important for the character progression, which the original show, doesn't really portray very well.
Thanks. Good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't really have any issue with. I mean, I personally thought the character progression was pretty clearly stated, especially in Loki. When he said, I did what I did because, I want attention, I wanted to be seen. And then later on, he talks about when he's held in that kind of time prison with, after, playing the joke and realizing he's going to be sad, pathetic, and alone, he starts to realize his behavior was obviously incorrect. Later on in the prune world, she asks him, like, how do I know you won't betray me? And they have a little back and forth, and he seems to come on a fairly good consensus that, like, look, that guy's not here anymore. And then the final episode, Loki even purposely goes out of his way to not be that person anymore, to the point where it actually costs him. And he's showing that he's changed. He's not going to backstab people. He's thinking of the greater good. He's trying to be the better person. And Sylvie actually turns on him already. So I guess my concern with your pitch is kind of twofold. I think it potentially undermines some of the MCU with the end of Thanos, as well as not really, in my opinion, changing any issue or drastically doing much different that was already done.
Look, well, I disagree with what you're saying about Loki's character progression. I feel like the things you listed there were all words apart from the scene where he's in the time prison. But even then, he's just kind of like, oh, just get me out of here. It didn't really feel like he'd learned his lesson, as opposed to he just didn't want to go through. I understand he was feeling the emotion of what he had done wrong, but I didn't feel like he had picked up anything from it. Whereas the other two things he had said, that's him just saying, yeah, I'm a good guy. No, I'm not going to betray you. I'll stand by your side and I'll defend you. But these are just words. There's no showing of Loki progressing as a character. Loki going to Thor and asking him for his help and breaking down and apologizing for what he'd done. That is an actual instance of showing character progression and a character arc, whereas we don't get that throughout the whole of the 6 episodes.
Okay, I would still disagree on a couple of issues, but I respect the pitch.
Thanks.
Rhys, I'm going to ask a question because the more questions you get, the longer you have to wait to go golfing after this. But it's just a nice simple question. So, like you said about how Owen Wilson gets to go back to, he goes back to his time for a little bit before deciding that he's going to go back to the TVA. Does he ride a jet ski?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I actually had written that in my notes initially, but I took it out. But yes, it 100% does.
There you go. Thank you for making my dreams come true.
Well, there we go. 2 of the pitches out the way, and next up to try and better Loki, Adam Markiewicz. Take it away.
Hello. Thank you. I've gone for something a bit simpler on my pitch. I'm just going to add 2 scenes to Loki. So the first one I want to add in is at the end of episode 5, we get Judge Renslayer watching a recording of her memory of promotion to judge, when she gets to meet, inverted commas, the timekeepers, but instead she gets to meet Kang. He reveals his love for her. Now, if you don't know, she's a bit of an on and off love interest in the comics. Sparks fly. Won't get into it here. How he's spent lifetimes with her. How she can be his equal if she wants, but she's unsure. She rejects him. She's got a passion for what she does, a sense of importance. She's scared of how she would be with that much power. He gives her one of his TED pads to reach him if she changes her mind. The second scene I'm adding is a post-credit scene to episode 6, a proper one. We get Ravonna arriving at the Citadel just before Loki and Sylvie, where she sees Kang, tells him she's ready to be with him. TV has nothing left for her. She wants to be the one in control. Kang tells her he may die. He doesn't know what's going to happen when Loki and Sylvie arrive beyond a certain point. And if he does, she has to go and ensure the foundations are in place for the timeline to be saved and for him to return. And then she leaves tearfully, just as Loki and Sylvie arrive. I think these scenes, for me, they would just add a little bit more, tie up a little bit more with the B plot, give us a bit more to think about, reward the audience for sticking with it. So that's a pretty simple pitch, but that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
So as tying up a bit of loose ends and kind of setting up potentially the main act of season 2 of Loki with Ravonna and Kang being a loving couple and kind of overpowering what the TVA could be. Very, very interesting. The floor is open if anyone wants to ask Adam any questions.
Adam, hi. In the post-credit scene where you're talking about Ramona going to see Kang, is Kang not dead at this point?
Sorry, I'd said it was just before Loki and Sylvie arrived, because obviously we've not seen this, but it's kind of already happened. Time's linear, so she's travelled using the 10 pad to a point before Loki and Sylvie arrive. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
right.
You got
understand.
Nice.
Yep.
Rhys, do you remember in the best Harry Potter film, Prisoner of Azkaban, when Harry gets hit by that stone and it was Hermione? That.
When Harry's at the other end of the lake and he thinks he sees his dad.
No, Rhys,
Oh.
you're not listening. In the pumpkin patch,
Right, okay.
with those little, those little stones like you get in Dorset from gift shops.
I'm not familiar with Dorset myself. Are you talking about when Hermione turns around and she goes, "Oh, I thought I just saw." Never mind. Are you talking about that?
Yes.
Right.
There
Okay.
we go. There we go. Finally. You happy with that?
Nah, I hate it. I'm kidding.
Adam, I've got a question. Stuart Fitzgerald, Big Picture Podcast. So, what is your plan going forward for Ravonna Renslayer then? Is she going to show up in the future? What is her end goal there? Are you just setting the seeds for that, or do you have is there something you'd like to see her do from then?
I think we could definitely see her interact potentially with the Council of Kangs, which in the comics is pretty obvious. There's lots of variants of Kangs that have banded together. I think there's potential for her to interact there to seek what the connection she had with the Kang she knows and other Kangs. I think she could be a good kind of driving force, but also kind of behind the scenes. I think it gives them a lot of scope for how they want to play it. She could be the one who's pulling the strings and giving extra obstacles for people to overcome, or if she, in that case, if she was with the Council of Kangs, or she should be someone in the background trying to save everything by herself.
Very good, nice answer, nice pitch. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Lewis, do you have any questions for Adam on his pitch?
Not really. It adds a little element, but it's not an element that I think I particularly would enjoy. But I think that's more because I actually like the way the show is going. I don't think we're getting a season 2. I think it's just going into Doctor Strange. So I think adding that would kind of take away from where I think the show's going personally. So I mean, it's a good pitch, but I have no questions or comments.
That's fair enough, Lewis. I would just maybe say, as much as it doesn't have to just lead into season 2, because she could just, if we're saying she's a background, kind of in the background, she could easily just blend into Doctor Strange as well. But that's why I've tried to get a bit of scope. But thanks, I appreciate your comments anyway. Thank you.
One thing I will say, it gives some bloody closure, and that's one thing this show just doesn't quite do right. As Rhys pointed out, it kind of gives ties up a loose end. There we go.
Just before we move on, Adam, I was just wondering, does what you propose really add much to season 1, or is it more about how it's going to benefit season 2?
I think I'm not going to say it adds loads to season 1, but I think it gives us a bit of a conclusion. I think just sitting down at the end, I think if you got this scene, you would feel like, okay, I know what's happening there. You know a bit more. I think it does at the end of Loki. I know it does, as we said, it doesn't wrap up anything. It very much leaves you in the dark as to what's going to happen next. And I think just giving the audience a bit of something like this, I think it would just wrap it up a bit better. So I think that would for me would be the season 1 impact. Although obviously I think I agree with you, it would maybe have more of an impact later on. I think the immediate impact though of kind of giving a bit of an ending, a bit more of an ending, I think would be really important.
Well, it's your last to pitch, my friend. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my comments and other pitches, you can tell there wasn't a lot that I wanted to change. And in truth, I kind of struggled to come up with something enough that bothered me to pitch a change. You know, exposition aside on some of the things they dealt with when dealing with, you know, complications of time travel. It's generally a good show, but one instance that particularly bothered me, and kind of became clear as I looked back, was in the final episode. We have, in my opinion, an amazing scene with Loki, Sylvie, and Kang kind of having a verbal back and forth about the whole concept of the time and taking over and making sure nothing goes awry. And in that scene, I personally felt like I was being drawn in and just absolutely mesmerized. However, Sophie Di Martino, aka Sylvie, I think was kind of outshined in this scene. I personally can't tell if it's dialogue, kind of her purpose in the scene versus her particular performance, but I'm going to go with the latter of the two. And unfortunately, in my pitch, I am recasting Sophie with Eva Green. Eva Green, in my opinion, quite a wonderful actress, starring in the 300 sequel. You know, quite a dark, tortured character, as well as fantastic in Casino Royale. It's quite a spectrum. But to me, I think she would have the skills and ability to jump into that atmosphere and add an element to that character that I personally thought was missing. Not just in that scene, but periodically throughout the show. I think Eva would be perfectly capable to create a bit more of a meaner, deeper, conflicted, twisted character. I kind of struggled to get sympathy for her particular motivations. Obviously, it's self-preservation, but I think that's the easiest one to kind of door on. So I would have preferred someone else that could maybe get a little bit more out of the character. I say this, though, the show was great and the performances were amazing. And like I said, I can't 100% tell if it was a dialogue decision or if it's a character issue or whatever. But if I had to pick one thing, unfortunately, it would probably be that scene and that particular issue with Sophie Di Martino. So unfortunately, I'd be recasting her with Eva Green. That's my pitch.
Eva Green is Sylvie and Loki. What is the panel's thoughts?
Hi, I'm coming first again. I've been getting in there quick. I think it's bold, and you know, I appreciate a bold pitch. My only concern is actually that we've already seen a kind of, you know, maybe a bit more of a dark, twisted Asgardian female character in Hela in Thor Ragnarok. So do you not worry that maybe we'd be getting a bit too similar? I know we're getting a female. I know she's a female Loki. I know that, but I'm just, you know, kind of wondering if their maybe kind of on-screen presence would be a bit too similar.
Yeah, no, actually, I 100% get your criticism, and we are dealing with Loki. I use these words specifically to kind of convey the person I was going with, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get some DC cast off or Spawn reincarnated. I don't mean this as in like all of a sudden she's going to become a serial killer and she's going to be really dark and murderous and like, no, I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for someone who has a bit more depth. They can touch into these elements. So I'm not saying dial up to 11 and have someone come to Asgard and throw sticks at our hands and impale people. I'm meaning just to get a bit more depth to the character, have someone that I think that could get the specific aspects I'm looking for, but just kind of give a bit more depth, feeling, and emotion, and create an atmosphere around the Sylvie more than just what we were given. I understand the criticism, and obviously me being me, of course, a dark twisted way. That's me in a fucking nutshell. But no, I get the criticism, but I'm not talking about dialing up that high.
All right, fair enough. Thank you. Good answer. Good answer.
Has anyone else got a question to ask of Lewis of his recasting of Sylvie?
I don't really have a question because I thought that Sophia Di Martino was brilliant. I never noticed what Lewis noticed, and at no point throughout the 6 episodes did I once even think negatively about her performance. So I think recasting would be a bit harsh, but obviously Lewis has seen something that I've not seen, and fair play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add to that. It's just, I mean, I struggled to pick something, and I thought adding some complexity and depth to Sylvie was like the one thing I could think of. and I didn't want to just go on a full rewrite of the script, so I figured, hey, let's maybe give someone else a crack.
I think actually, yeah, like I was the same as Rhys when you talked about recasting. I was like, oh, that's a shame. I kind of liked what she was doing, but as you went onto your pitch, I was like, do you know what? I could see Eva Green doing like playing Loki, and then I'm sorry, but Adam just like convinced me that yeah, I think there'd be too many Hela parallels drawn between them. So like, yeah, sorry, Adam kind of just swayed me away from that. Yeah, but I do agree that Eva Green needs to be in the MCU. I feel it should be a real powerhouse, but maybe not in that role.
Yeah, I can't really add more to that criticism as a kind of retort to Adam. I'm not trying to create someone quite to that level. I just want to see maybe a slightly different portrayal. Nothing personal, Sophie. Like I said, it was great. I actually enjoyed the performance, but when I looked at that scene in the end of episode 6 and kind of reflected on the rest of the show, I felt like there was just a bit of depth, a bit of atmosphere around Sylvie that was missing, and I just thought I'd try and correct that, but obviously steered the ship a bit too far.
Well, there we have it. The pitches are in. And can you please submit to me who you would like to win this episode and be this episode's big picture? Will it be Stewart's pitch for a more high-octane episode 3? Will it be Rhys's pitch of 3 extra episodes to add some finality to the whole shenanigans? Will it be Adam, who wanted a kind of tie-up for the B-side story of Ravonna and meeting Kang in an extra post-credit scene? Or is it Lewis, who wants Eva Green to be Sylvie in the TV show? And as the boys are sending in their pitches, I can reveal the next episode of the big picture. We are going to decide what is the best movie theme song.
Oh, I feel like when you announce what the next episode is, it's always a big surprise for me. I feel like I'm as surprised as
You
everyone
just forget.
I'm so clueless.
And it will be, I'm sure that the host has forgot who's hosting that, but I will inform that it is Stuart that will be hosting that episode.
I definitely wasn't trying to work out if it was me.
I also thought that it was me. Oh, that's exciting.
I remembered what it was because I have the eye of the tiger. No, it's 27 degrees out. I can't sing. It's really hot. Wrap this up, Jack.
Well, I can't wrap up because the votes are in, and with 3 votes, your episode winner, the big picture champion, the man that can fix Loki, with a more high octane episode 3, Stuart Fitzgerald. Well done. You are this episode's big picture champion. How does it feel?
Cheers. Thanks, guys. Great. It's 27 degrees, Jack. Please wrap it up.
Yep. Okay. On that note, it is 27 degrees. We are all melting.
Wait. Who got the other vote?
Adam. Adam got the other vote.
Thank you.
Well done, Adam. First
I
time listener.
I wasn't going to mention it. I was just going to leave it at the 3 votes for Stuart and an overwhelming victory. And on that note, Stuart, well done. Adam, commiserations, but second place. Must be happy.
Yeah, pleased. I thought Stuart's pitch was the one that I voted for, obviously, and I thought it was really good, so I don't feel bad to lose to that.
Lewis, commiseration as well. Thank you for coming on. I'm sure you'll have some excellent movie theme song choice for our next episode.
I'll try and make something a bit better than my pitch that I did, hours before the show.
And Rhys, commiserations, and thank you for being on as always. We look forward to having you back.
Okay. Great host as always. I know. Fuck off.
On that note, we end there. We see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.